All right, let's talk a little bit about sports brand decisions. These are decisions that sports brands have to make. So if we think about sports brand decisions, your book talks about this. This is There are some crucial things that you need to think about. First, names are important. First, the names need to be available. They should have no legal or regulatory restrictions. You should not end up with a name that is going to end up with a lawsuit. Um, an example is trying to come up with a cutesy name that is close to another name. Um, if some of you are familiar with the designer brand Sergio Valente, there was a condom company that came up with the name Sergio Prevente, and as a result, then Sergio Valente has to sue them and get them to stop cease and desist using that name, and those sorts of things come up all the time. When the Steve Wynn built the Mirage and named it the Mirage, it turned out that there was a small hotel casino on Flamingo and Paradise that was called the La Mirage, and they sued the Steve Wynn's company, and Steve Wynn's company ended up having to pay them a relatively large chunk of money to be able to use that name. Understand that initials aren't names. You know that we have a place called the Treasure Island. They want to be called the TI. Now, I don't understand why, but that's just not sensible. An example, of course, might be EOS. The best names are locked directly into the product's benefits. Healthy Choice, 24-Hour Fitness, Lifetime Fitness, those are the sorts of names that directly help tied to their benefits. The name should be pronounceable, simple, and emotional. So how do you pronounce this chainsaw company? Poland? The names need to be simple, and they need to have potentially an emotional context to them. They should fit the company or product's image. Should have a name somehow that ties to that product and that product category. Make sure the name is pleasing to the ear and sight. That is, it's important that the name sound good, but it's also important that the name look good when it is in visual form. You need to be able to make sure that the name is easy to remember. Very quickly, what's the name of the WNBA team in Las Vegas? So think about how we make things more memorable and rememberable. And then check for existing meanings, negative connotations, and maybe even foreign language translations to make sure that the name is not going to end up being sort of a negative name and have a negative connotation and force you to have to change the name after a season or two. Some of the brand decisions that have to be made is not only the name, but also the trademark. That is the distinctive sign or indicator used by an individual or legal entity. An example is Nike, and we have others here, but the idea here is that the trademarks are things that can be registered and legally protected. There's also a brand mark. The brand mark is different from the trademark in that the brand mark has no written parts to it. So you can see down below here we have a Nike swoosh, which is a trademark, and then we have a brand mark, which is simply the Nike swoosh by itself. That would be a brand mark. We then have something called trade dress, and this is the legal term for the art that generally refers to the characteristics and visual aspects of the product. The Target, the Hyundai H, the Zappos exclamation point, the yellow and red Shell for Shell motor oil. These are all parts of the trade dress. The colors, the way that things are put together are all part of the trade dress. And You need to be thinking about those, and I'm going to explain in just a little while why that's even more important for the teams. Also, jingles and slogans. You know, one of the most famous slogans in all of marketing is, with a name like Smuckers, it has to be good. On the other hand, probably the one that the slogan that is most memorable for those of us that live in Las Vegas is, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So let's look at this from a sports team perspective for a second. Think about the Las Vegas Aviators. What a clever and unique sport team name. It has to do with the fact that the club was moved to Summerlin, and Summerlin used to be was developed by the Howard Hughes Corporation, and Howard Hughes was one of the original innovators in the aviation business. Hence the name Aviators. And we all say, boy, what a clever and unique name for a sports team. Yeah, well, not so much. There's the Rockford Aviators, the Lafayette Aviators, there's the Abilene Aviators, the Los Angeles Aviators, the Ohio Aviators, the Edmonton Aviators, the San Diego Aviators, the New York Aviators, and of course the Atwater County Aviators, among many, many others. So one of the questions you would have to ask yourself is, did no one do their homework? And of course, it's okay to have a name that's similar to other people's names, and I guess maybe steals their names and uses it, you know, with a different logo and those sorts of things. But the fact is that the Aviator's name is not quite as clever as you might think it was, and not quite as unique, and not quite as creative. So let's think about sports team branding decisions, okay? First is the name, and the name is sort of crucial. Now, when the Golden Knights were named, there was a lot of debate associated with that because the Army sports teams are called the Black Knights, and their colors are gold and black. And so when the Golden Knights use the same, and by the way, here that the logo here on the right with the sword is the Army Golden Knights, and then we have the Las Vegas Golden Knights logo on the top. So you can see how close the logos are. You know, it should have been the Golden Knights. Many of us should have said it should have been the Las Vegas Knights. Maybe it should have, you know, but whatever. It is the Golden Knights. That was an interesting decision. Now, what the Golden Knights decided to do was, in terms of trade dress, really has to do with team colors, black and gold. If you're going to put a sports team together, there are certain colors that you tend to want to avoid because it is hard to take those colors and do something creative with them that will sell merchandise. The colors black and gold are easily sold. This is an old gold. It's not a bright gold. It's an old gold color. And of course, the idea is that you have trade dress and team colors that look great, and as a result are much more likely to sell merchandise. And one of the reasons that the Golden Knights sell a lot of merchandise is because their logos are made from colors that are very popular right now. Colors that are not as popular right now would obviously be things like purple and gold and yellow, and even orange is not popular right now. It's interesting because the Aviators have orange in theirs. I'm not sure why. So think about the trade dress and the team colors and how all that is going to fit together, how the uniforms are going to look. Those are all important decisions with team branding. Think about the logos. Of course, here we have the Golden Knights logo and the Black Knights logo next to each other over here. But think about the logos that we're going to use. Of course, at UNLV, we have traditionally used the Hey Reb logo, and many of you know that recently UNLV tried to change the look of their logo, and of course, part of that was that they thought that logo was too Southern rebel looking, and so they hired a company to come in and change the logo. It was a company from Denver, the students and the boosters hated the logo, and so now the logo is gone. Although you can buy plenty of merchandise theoretically on sale that has that logo on it. Think about though names like, for instance, the UNLV is called the Rebels, and of course it has to do with North versus South in the state of Nevada. And when the university broke away from the University of Nevada and became two different schools, the University of Nevada at Reno and the University of Nevada at Las Vegas, they were the Wolf Pack, and then we began and used sort of the northern colors from the Civil War. We used the southern colors from the Civil War, and had a more rebel-looking logo to begin with, and of course it's evolved over the years. But the problem, of course, is that UNLV is very uncomfortable promoting the rebels and the logo associated with it. When we had a president here called Neil Simatras, and he was real good about promoting the rebels as people who are change agents and people who rebel against mediocrity and people who rebel against, and so he used the term rebels in a more positive, non-Southern approach. But so now we have logos, and the question is the logo okay? We have a name. Is the name okay? You remember that not very long ago, the University of North Dakota fought this battle and finally acquiesced and changed their name from the Fighting Sioux to something else. Sports teams that had Indian names have almost all changed them. Some that haven't are the University of Illinois Illini, let's see what else, these Florida State Seminoles, and there are certain teams in the country that won't play them because they find those names offensive. I think the University of Nevada at Las Vegas has always been a little bit concerned about our name, the Rebels. Think about logos and what the logos should look like, and should they evolve over time. And then think about taglines. One of the taglines that we have for UNLV is the Runnin' Rebels. Runnin' Rebels doesn't sound as good for football as it does for basketball, because teams that run in basketball tend to be exciting. Teams that run in football tend to be less exciting. So think about those kinds of decisions, the names, the trade dress, the logos, the taglines, and think about how that's going to evolve over time. In summary, branding matters, especially with sports teams.